From CitrusTV News, this is a special report.
President Biden touching down here in Syracuse today. Welcome to a CitrusTV News special report. I'm Nicole Aponte.
And I'm Chile Cassiadelle. Of course, Biden's set to speak in not too long from now, about an hour and 15 minutes. But first, why don't we go downtown outside Armory Square, outside the Most Museum. That's where Isabella Galan joins us. And Isabella, there are protesters calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, and of course they're protesting the president's arrival and speech.
All right, guys. Hey, so I am currently outside of the Museum of Science and Technology. St. Franklin Street and West Jefferson Street is right where we are, where there is a pro-Palestinian protest actually going on right now. If you take a look right behind me, they've been here since about 11 o'clock this morning. They've really been making sure to make their voices heard. They have signs, banners, chants calling out city officials like Mayor Ben Walsh, as well as even Syracuse University's Chancellor Kent Severud. He was actually standing outside a little bit earlier this morning, but he is now inside along with a lot of other officials. They were even calling out President Biden a little bit earlier, so there's definitely a lot of tension here. But as you can also see, there are some police officers from the NYPD, the SYPD, and even Secret Service. They're standing right over here behind me, making sure the protesters are staying right on the sidewalk, not entering into the street, as these streets behind me have been closed. We're expecting that the streets here that are blocked off are where the motorcade will be, bringing Joe Biden to speak inside the museum a little bit later today. We're expecting around 1:45 p.m. But that's all from me right now. We will have more continued coverage later on throughout this special report. Back to you guys in studio.
Isabella Galan, thanks so much. This is something we've obviously been following across college campuses throughout the United States. But let's go now to the Syracuse Hancock International Airport. Air Force One is landing right now. All right, let's talk about these protests though first.
Yeah.
This is
we can actually see Air Force One landing now. I believe this is live vision.
Landing right now. Look at that.
So the president coming into town about 8 minutes ahead of schedule.
Wow.
Yeah. Just touched down at Hancock Airport. Wow. Our Max
Williams in the shot there too.
But there it is. Air Force One landing in Syracuse. The president has touched down and appears to be on track. At least we don't know what else will come into the way between now and 12:40 and 1:45.
Because it's supposed to be a short visit here in central New York today. Because he's
so.
supposed to leave Hancock International Airport today around 2:50, 3 o'clock today.
Yeah, it's supposed to be very close. We talked about last time he came here back in 2022, October of 2022. It was a very similar topic in regards to Micron, but at the same time, it was a little bit longer. About 5 hours. The president touched a little bit before 2 o'clock, and he left about 7 that afternoon into the evening.
Well, today he is going to the Most Museum, so that is right in Armory Square, where you saw Bella Galan before.
Yeah.
There's going to be tons of traffic delays too, so it's super important. As you head out today for lunch or anything else, those roads are going to be closed.
Right. Actually, let's go to Max Williams and Cora Mayor Costa. They're outside right now. Again, they just watched the president land on Air Force One, touchdown here in Syracuse. Guys, what are you seeing right now?
Chile, Nicole, just a historic day for Syracuse. As you just saw the president land at Syracuse Hancock International Airport, a very special moment. I'm Max Williams, joined alongside Cora Mary Costa. This is, we haven't seen the president in 2 years. He hasn't spoken here publicly in 2 years. Last time he was here with Air Force One for his brother-in-law's funeral. But it's been a little while. So.
Yeah, he's coming back. $6.1 billion is a lot of money. So he's coming here to talk about that and admits that there's been some traffic around the airport. You've seen an increase in New York State troopers. Now, that is because Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh and Governor Kathy Hochul agreed to send some state troopers after the deaths of the 2 officers nearly 2 weeks ago, now to help this grieving community. Their funerals were just earlier this week, so to help some of those officers, they sent in extra patrols.
Yeah, and it's been a hard week for many here in Syracuse. So over the last 2 weeks, I should say, excuse me, just as these officers grieve the 2 deaths of the Onondaga County deputy and the Syracuse police officer. So, but we do have a statement from the Syracuse Police Union.
Yes, the Syracuse Police Union president had said that there's a lot of frustration among the membership about how insensitive the Biden administration appears to be. Now, Brandon Williams had put in a request to Kathy Hochul to postpone this visit, but ultimately they decided to go through with it, and thus they sent the New York State troopers here.
Yeah, and this is also a special day for the president as well, not just for Micron getting this grant. As many of you know out there, President Biden is a Syracuse grad. He graduated in 1968. But also when he was here, when he spoke publicly about Micron 2 years ago, he said that Syracuse is a special place to him. So as we wait for Air Force One to get in here, let's take a look at his itinerary for today. So he just landed now, and then he's going to head over to the Most in downtown Syracuse, and then he will make his way back to the airport around 3:30. And then, all right, let's take a look at Air Force One as it just got off the runway. And the plane you are seeing there is a Boeing 747-200. It is the president's largest aircraft. Now, he does have 2 other aircrafts, 757-200, but this one is fitted for a longer runway, which the Syracuse Airport can accommodate. And we have Secret Service and the National Guard here waiting for the plane to arrive and waiting for Biden to step down officially on the grounds here in Syracuse. Here comes President Biden, who is about to walk out. We can see him about to step down, and here he is. There is President Biden, you're seeing right there, live.
This is the first time he's back this year.
Yes, and first time to speak here publicly in 2 years.
And we could also see, Jill Biden is here next to the motorcade waiting for him to join her.
It'll be very interesting today, though, what President Biden will discuss in his speech, and that's where we find our 2 Lukes. Our 2 Lukes, Luke Radel, Luke Welch, they are at the Most Museum for us this afternoon. Now, can you give us a preview on what we're about to expect to hear from the president?
Yeah, Chile, I heard you mention redistricting and my spidey senses started tingling a little bit, but we got to figure out something before we begin because my name is Luke.
My name's Luke.
So we got to figure out how you guys are going to toss to us in the moment, but there are a lot more names here than just Luke. We got some famous names here. Luke, who did you spot in the room?
I saw State Senator John Manning, who's running for the New York 22 House bid just in June in that primary election and then in November. And I've still, someone who, it's interesting that wasn't here was actually Brandon Williams, the seat of the person who he's trying to replace.
Yeah. I did see his predecessor, former Congressman John Katko, was here, former Republican Congressman John Katko, who was one of the few New York Republicans who actually supported the CHIPS and Science Act that made this announcement possible. Now, I want to show you guys another famous face who is here, someone that you may be familiar with on campus, SU Chancellor Kent Syverud. I caught up with him a few minutes ago about why he's here at the event and what he is hoping to hear from the president. Take a look.
We're excited about the announcement of the extraordinary commitment to Central New York that is the Micron plant, and we're going to hear more details about it.
What's it like to have a president of the United States who's an SU alum?
It's a good thing. So he's been very helpful to Syracuse University, and I'm very grateful for it.
From CitrusTV News, this is a special report.
And we continue to bring you coverage right now as I'm John Perrick, joined alongside Zach Richter. And of course, we've been following this breaking news all day as President Biden is here in Syracuse.
And this all coming as just after the president arrived and to announce that $1.61 billion investment bringing the microchip plant to Clay, New York, and also in Boise, Idaho. And now as President Biden is about to address an audience at the Museum of Science and Technology in downtown Syracuse, obviously we have those protests happening right now, but let's recap where we are right now.
And I also do want to welcome in everyone who might just be joining us now as we are past the 1:30 hour here. And President's supposed to speak around 1:45, but having covered this in the past 2 years ago when Biden was here, I think he spoke about 45 minutes after that expected time frame. And of course, there could be many other speakers, but we're going to get into that in a moment. I do want to mention, though, that Air Force One touched the ground around 12:38. The president then got to Armory Square, in downtown Syracuse, just after the 1 o'clock hour. And where he is right now, we cannot confirm, but you have to imagine he's entering the museum, and he could already be inside.
Yeah, once again, bunch of road closures in the area, especially around Armory Square. We talked about that earlier. And President Biden, there's going to be a few speakers before Biden comes on, is what is expected also.
Exactly. And I would be surprised if we didn't see, or hear rather, from Chuck Schumer, Governor Kathy Hochul, Ryan McMahon, the county executive here for Onondaga County, all people that played a critical role in bringing Micron to Central New York.
And especially Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer has been such a large part of Micron coming to Central New York, making that big announcement in the fall about the Chips and Science Act that Syracuse.
And you were there at that announcement.
Yes, and that it's Western New York and Central New York being designated for the I-90 corridor as a semiconductor highway. That is huge, the fact that we won this, and now the $6.1 billion investment, obviously just always plussing and gaining on that. So it's just...
And Zach, that's the big thing is, sure, the events in Syracuse right now, but this is something that will transform Central New York. All right, Luke Radel and Luke Welch, thank you for your coverage as we are, again, just a matter of minutes away from hearing from the president. It's a waiting game right now, and that brings us to Bradley Hoppenstein, our economic analyst today. Now, Bradley, I just want to talk about the economy right now. Biden, he's up for re-election. Are voters, you think, sold on this economy, this future made in America?
Yeah, John, short answer right now, no. Voters actually seem to be more on the side of Donald Trump than his opponent, most likely opponent in November, Joe Biden. I actually have some new polling from Bloomberg here. This is from about a week ago. Basically, most voters in this poll think the inflation rate is either going to stay the same or get worse as the year goes on. The overall U.S. economy going to stay the same or get worse. Most of them think it's going to get worse. That number's about 50%. And then a Reuters poll from about a week ago, who has a better approach to the economy? 41% Donald Trump, 34% Joe Biden. And we've seen Joe Biden and his administration ditch the Bidenomics term that they were going with just a few months ago because a lot of voters have not been on the side of their economic policies. But let's talk Micron here in CNY. This plant is supposed to bring up to 10,000 jobs to the area. It's supposed to, they're investing $100 billion in the region. So you think that is good for New York, and there's a ton of incentives for New York here. But the country, yes, President Biden is bringing chip making back and jobs back to the United States, but it's going to take a lot more than that, specifically on the inflation front, to really get voters on his side when it comes to the economy, guys.
Just quickly right now, sorry to cut you off, Bradley, but Governor Kathy Hochul is addressing the crowd right now at the most, and let's just take a live look. You can see her right there on your screen right now, and let's just listen in for a sec.
It's appropriate that we first take a moment to acknowledge two members of the law enforcement community that we tragically lost just this past week. They're protecting people's lives. And I want to acknowledge Officer Michael Jensen of the Syracuse Police Department and Lieutenant Michael Husick of the Onondaga Sheriff's Office. I have been so moved by their bravery and the unimaginable circumstances in which they found themselves just a short time ago. And the way this community has stood up and rallied around their families, around law enforcement, to give them the respect that they deserve. So I ask you to join me now for a moment of silence as we pray for these two heroes and their families.
He'll be talking about
well, let's go right now to the introduction of the President of the United States.
Hello. It's good to be back in Syracuse. I fell in love with this place, but I fell in love with a girl before I did that. Come, please all have a seat. Shannon, thanks for that introduction, and thank you for your brothers and sisters and the building trades, what they're doing to help build a future here in Syracuse. You know, before I start, I want to take a moment to honor two officers who I already mentioned, two fallen heroes who were killed in the line of duty this month. Lieutenant Michael Hosick and County Sheriff Department, and Syracuse Police Officer Michael Jensen. We pray for their loved ones whose hearts have been broken. You know, every time a police officer puts on that shield every morning, their husband or wife, whatever it is, or child, worries about will they get that phone call? Will they get that phone call? I got one of those phone calls in a different circumstance. Find out you've lost part of your soul, lost part of your heart. For the entire Syracuse community is grieving, and we're grieving with you. You know, to the men and women of law enforcement here and across the country, you represent the best of us. You really do. It's one of the toughest jobs in America, one of the toughest jobs. And to the families, who I hope to get to meet shortly, I say my heart goes out to you. Thank you, and God bless you all. Folks, I want to thank Governor Hochul for having us here today and for her partnership. And thanks to Chuck Schumer, a relentless advocate for this project we're here to talk about today. County Executive Man, it's good to be back in a place that meant so much to me in my life. I also want to thank Governor Little of Idaho and Boise Mayor McClain for joining us. Micron CEO Sanjay, thank you for your leadership and investment in America. We try to entice you a little bit with a couple hundred, billions of dollars, but you can. And it seemed to work. And all the union leaders here, including Randy Weingarten, the American Federation of Teachers, thank you for showing the world that we can do big things again in America. And all folks all over the years, I've asked business leaders like Sanjay, because the other team kept criticizing me for wanting to make these investments, things like the infrastructure bill, which is over $1 trillion. We're going to have we have an infrastructure decade coming. Last guy had infrastructure week and never showed up. But I asked him, I was told that, this is government intervention. I said, sure in hell is. I ask every business leader I know, not a joke. When the federal government makes a multi-billion-dollar investment in something, does that encourage you or discourage you from getting engaged? Well, guess what? Every single solitary leader said overwhelmingly, yes, it encourages them to get engaged. And so that's why we're here today. During the pandemic, folks everywhere learned about supply chains. You may remember we had a global shortage of semiconductors, smaller than the tip of your finger, and now it's even smaller than that. That would help power everything in our lives, from smartphones to cars to dishwashers, satellites. We invented those chips here in America. We invented them. We made them move. We modernized them. But over time, we used to have 40% of this market. And over time, we stopped making them. So when the pandemic shut down chip factory overseas, prices of everything went up. Here at home, that semiconductor shortage drove 1/3 of the surge in inflation in 2021, caused long wait lines of all kinds of products. Folks, I determined that I'm never going to let us be vulnerable to wait lines again. If it's essential, we're going to make it here in America. And together, and by the way, that's not hyperbole, that's literal. Together with Schumer leader and I, we took action to make sure these chips are made in America again.
And President Biden now on the way back to Syracuse Hancock International Airport is where he's expected to board Air Force One and now head to Westchester. So Air Force One sitting there on the ground at Syracuse Airport. We get a live look there in a moment. We'll show you, and we'll have all of a full wrap up tonight on Live at 6. There it is. There's Air Force One. Biden expected to board momentarily.
Yeah, funnily enough, my sister goes to the school that he's going to be around. So he's visiting both of us today.
There you go.
Well, I just want to close here saying that it's not every day you see Air Force One on the tarmac here at the Hancock International Airport in Syracuse, and it truly was a day of history and really a day of what's yet to come.
We are very fortunate to have seen that image twice in our 4 years.
I actually saw it 3 times. I was on the tarmac last year, boarding a plane to Florida when he actually landed because he was coming for a funeral that time. So I've seen it 3 times, but still, again, history here in Central New York. Well, for all of us here at Citrus TV, I want to thank you for watching our special report of President Biden's visit to Syracuse. I'm John Perrick.
Olivia and John, we just want to thank you too for all of your great insight today and everything. And make sure to stay tuned online and on air. We'll have a full wrap-up of everything tonight on News Live at 6. For John Perrick, I'm Zach Richter at the Citrus TV studios. Have a good